What's up, guys? It's Diego from SGN, and I'm here to talk about Kevin Lee and what might just be his best performance we've ever seen in the UFC octagon, because it didn't just come against some random guy. It didn't come against somebody who's just in the top 10. It came against one of the most dangerous strikers you could possibly face in Edson Barboza. And coming into this fight, I honestly had Kevin Lee winning just because he fights kind of similar to Khabib Nurmagomedov, and we saw how effective that was for Khabib. And obviously, Kevin Lee is also a better striker than Khabib. That's something that we're really able to take away from this fight. Is on the feet, he can hold his own, and he was actually getting the better of Barboza in the majority of the exchanges. And yes, he got hit by that big spinning head kick. But in my opinion, that was actually something that proves that Kevin Lee is probably the best athlete in that weight class as well, because the balance he showed to stay on his feet when he had his ankles literally going in every single direction except for staying upright. He was still able to stay on his feet. He was still able to not even come close to really falling. And the fact that he was able from that position, from that situation, to secure a takedown with such ease on Edson Barboza really showed two things. Number one, that Kevin Lee has a monstrous fight IQ alongside of his amazing athleticism. And that Edson Barboza, his takedown defense really needs some work. Because obviously, there's no shame in losing to Kevin Lee. There's no shame in losing to Khabib. No shame in getting taken down by either one of those guys. But there isn't a situation in the world, a scenario in the world, where somebody should be that hurt and is still able to take you down with relative ease. And that happened to Edson Barboza. So, Edson Barboza is obviously a really, really good fighter, but there's some big holes in his game. And until he figures those things out, then I don't think he's ever going to be a real title contender. He's always been a top 5 guy for quite a while now. He's just been showing that if you stay on the feet with him and you make it a brawl or even make it a technical just stand-up fight, you're in for some big problems. But if you get him and make it ugly, even if you aren't as technical as him, you are still going to have a very good chance of giving him a lot of problems on the feet. And Kevin Lee did just that, showing that he's a very, very well-rounded fighter. And honestly, I think that losing to Tony Ferguson was probably the best thing that could happen to Kevin Lee, because maybe Lee was a bit too overconfident. He was maybe believing in himself a little bit too much and not really thinking he could be beaten. But losing to a guy like Tony Ferguson, who is probably the best fighter in the division, I think he's definitely better than Khabib. I think he's more well-rounded, and I think that on the ground, Khabib would have a really, really hard time dealing with just how much Tony Ferguson would throw at him. And Tony had a really, really good fight against Kevin Lee, and Kevin Lee had a really, really good performance there. He was actually doing really well before Tony was landing some big elbows from his guard, and that was really what changed the fight and pushed the tide towards Tony Ferguson. So I think that if Kevin Lee does match up once again with Ferguson, it would be one hell of a fight once again. And obviously, I think it would be a bit more intelligent with his ground and pound. He wouldn't expose himself as much to elbows, and that was definitely a very, very important learning experience for him going forward in his career, and that's only something that's going to make him improve, because at 25 years of age, he's probably the biggest talent alongside Brian Ortega that we have in the UFC. I mean, you can't really think of somebody who, at 25 years old, is already so well-rounded. His power is there. His boxing technique is also there. He landed some huge kicks last night on Edson Barboza. Hurt him really bad. It looked like maybe he even cracked his ribs for a second there, because Barboza was clearly in big pain, and it wasn't a liver shot. It was on the opposite side of his body, but he was clearly hurt. Really, really hurt. There was also another kick, which actually looked like it landed to the back, or at least the backs of the side of Edson Barboza, and it really, really hurt him. So whether it's with his hands or with his kicks, Kevin Lee can do some really, really big damage. And that's something that really proves that he's going to be a very, very dangerous fighter moving forward, both in lightweight and in welterweight. He has the size, he has the power, and he has the technique. So if he can continue to improve, which he definitely will, he's going to be a very, very big problem for anybody in that weight class, and obviously welterweight. What I would really like to see, though, is obviously Kevin Lee taking on Khabib Nurmagomedov. I think that from a stylistic point of view, that's probably the most difficult matchup for Khabib, apart from maybe Tony Ferguson. Because if you look at him, Khabib, he loves to take people down. That's what he does. He takes people down and he grounds and pounds them. He beats the shit out of them. If he sees a wide opening for a submission, he'll go for it. But for the most part, he doesn't take that risk, which is why he doesn't have a lot of finishes in his career. That's why he doesn't really have the fans love to watch him because they know for a fact he's going to go out there, give everything he has, and just beat the shit out of somebody. But if he was any little bit, less just torturous, as I like to put it, then he probably wouldn't be as big of a star as he has the potential of being. Whereas Kevin Lee, he goes out there and he doesn't just go out there and just beats you up, man. He goes out there looking for the finish with everything he does. He landed so many elbows. He was amazing in that fight. And Khabib Nurmagomedov, we already knew he was like that. And Kevin Lee had the potential to be like that. So put them against each other and see what happens. And I honestly, I would prefer to see Kevin Lee win that fight. I would be rooting for him big time because I like Khabib. I like his style. I like the way he portrays himself. I like that just Terminator mentality he seems to have. But I like Lee a lot more just because he has that personality. I think he has the potential to be a really, really big star, somebody who can actually cross over. With Khabib, yes, he has that push from Russia. He has that backing because he has such a major country behind him. But I don't think he can really be a crossover star because when he talks, he's not really entertaining. He says some entertaining stuff, like when he was beating the shit out of Michael Johnson and telling him just give up. I don't want to do this to you. Just give up and stuff like that. That was awesome. But he's not really that fun because he doesn't speak great English. And he's just very monotonous with his tone and everything like that. Whereas Kevin Lee, he has the look, he has the style, not just in the cage, but also with the way he dresses, the way he presents himself. There's my cat. Anyway, he has everything that the UFC is going to need to promote somebody to really become a major star and really possibly be the next big thing after Conor McGregor. And that's something that they definitely need to push. And I think after a win like this, he definitely earns the fight. Now, the question is, with Tony Ferguson and Conor out, who deserves it more, Dustin Poirier or Kevin Lee? If you haven't seen my video from a couple days ago, and I'll leave it at the end of the video, it'll pop up for you, or you'll also be able to see it in the description down below. Check it out. I said that Dustin Poirier probably deserves the title shot, and if they weren't going to give it to him, then make him fight Eddie Alvarez. But I didn't take into consideration that Kevin Lee was going to look this good. Like I said, I expected him to win, but I didn't expect the performance that dominant. So I think that he's at the very least in the mix. And Dustin Poirier, with all due respect to Poirier, he beat Justin Gaethje, who isn't on the same level as Edson Barboza. Justin Gaethje's obviously very highly ranked. I think he was ranked at number 6 going into that fight against Poirier. But Edson Barboza has consistently been fighting the very best guys in the division, always fighting guys that are on the cusp of a title shot. And Justin Gaethje definitely wasn't one of those guys. He had just lost a fight to Eddie Alvarez, which is more or less a title eliminator, sort of. So I definitely wouldn't put Justin Gaethje on the level of Edson Barboza right now, just in terms of where they are in their careers, what they're ranked at, and what people could actually expect them to do. So I think that this is definitely a bigger win for Kevin Lee than the win for Dustin Poirier was, even though Dustin Poirier's fight was going to be remembered by more people just because of how, just because of how amazing the fight was, how fun it was, how entertaining. That has to be taken into consideration, and that might actually be what Dana White, what pushes Dana White to give the title shot to Poirier above Kevin Lee. But I think from a stylistic point of view, there's no doubt that Kevin Lee has the tools to neutralize what Khabib wants to do and actually dominate Khabib. It's going to be a very, very interesting fight if it does happen. And you can't really deny, man, the post-fight thing, the post-fight interview, he wants it. It's Khabib time. That is exactly what time it is for Kevin Lee. And I personally, that is the fight I'm looking forward to the most. Because if you look at what happened with Dustin Poirier against Eddie Alvarez 2 fights ago for Poirier, 3 fights ago maybe, it ended in controversy. So I would say, if Khabib wants to fight soon, put Kevin Lee versus Khabib Nurmagomedov and match up Dustin Poirier and Eddie Alvarez. Give the fans and give both those men the closure that they deserve after such controversy in their previous fight. So put them together. Winner of that could take on the winner of Kevin Lee versus Khabib Nurmagomedov, or whatever the hell the UFC wants to do. That's the problem with this division, is that Conor really fucked a lot of stuff up with his actions and the way he's been just holding up the belt for so long. And obviously Tony being out, that's a big question mark because he had a major surgery, so we don't know how long it's going to be. But right now, considering they're both out for who knows how long, I'm only taking into consideration 3 people: Kevin Lee, Eddie Alvarez, and Dustin Poirier. So I would say Kevin Lee above everybody else. Match him up with Khabib, have them fight. Winner takes on the winner of Eddie Alvarez versus Dustin Poirier, and just see who is the very best man in that division, apart from obviously the 2 wild cards in Conor McGregor and Tony Ferguson. I think that Tony Ferguson is probably the better fighter of all of those guys because he's more well-rounded. He's just so gritty. But You never know until those guys match up in the octagon. So I definitely look forward to seeing what the hell happens in this UFC lightweight division. It is without a doubt the best division in the sport, and there's just so much to look forward to. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please smash that like button and let me know in the comment section down below who you think would win between Kevin Lee and Khabib Nurmagomedov, and is that the fight you want to see next, or would you prefer Dustin Poirier? Also, please subscribe to the channel and maybe hit the notification bell. That way you get notifications every time a video comes out. We put out quite a bit of this stuff, especially now we're starting to really turn it up. So I hope you guys will tune in. Thank you so much once again for watching. I will see you in the next video.